growth, next seasons, life. These are all keywords that come to mind when thinking about transitioning into a new chapter of life. For some, it can be a time of excitement and change. For others, it can be a time of uncertainty, some anxiety, and maybe even some self-doubt. The other day, someone wrote to ask my advice on adapting to new seasons. They were entering their first year of college away from home and wanted to know what advice I could offer. Congrats, by the way. Sounds exciting. I must confess, this comes on the tails of my latest album that was just released titled Breathe. And no, this is not a plug for my new album. Well, I'm not going to mention that I have a new release titled Breathe, but one of the songs is titled With You, which I'll spare you the details for another time, but the song stems from seeing one of my sons grow from middle childhood into preteen. It's a bittersweet feeling watching someone you love grow into their next season of life. And as they grow, it's hard. It's hard to let go, and you want to keep them forever in that moment. But at the same time, you're excited to see them become what they're supposed to be. There's a mix of emotions, everything from sad and joyful to nostalgic and hopeful. And that pretty much sums up how I felt when I received this email. My mind going back to my eldest son, watching him grow, knowing that at some point he'll be asking me this same question. So while I don't know you personally, with you asking this question, I'm going to relate it as if I did, because in a way, I do. This month finds many people stepping onto a campus for the very first time. Perhaps for some of you, this will be your first time away from home, or maybe for some, it isn't about starting a new school year, but just starting a new chapter in general. Regardless of what door you're entering into, I would sum it up to this. The best way to adapt to new seasons is by embracing growth. Each season brings something new, something different. Notice I didn't say something amazing. Perhaps it will be amazing, but sometimes amazing comes later, once we get used to something being new, which is why it's important to being open to change. That doesn't mean you have to forget about the past, not at all, but it does mean bringing into focus the present, where you are right now, where you are today. Life is always changing, and growth is always happening, even when we don't see it, even when it doesn't feel like it. Today, we're going to embrace a new season of change. I'm Chad Lawson, and let's calm it down in 3, 2, 1. There will always be new seasons to come, as that's how life is. Growth. Just when you think you've mastered this thing called life, you realize there's so much more to learn and experience. The key is to embrace growth, to embrace change, and to never stop learning, to never stop evolving. It's never easy to say goodbye to the past and transition into a new chapter of life. Whether you're graduating from school or starting a new job or ending a relationship, change can be scary. So I'm going to go over a few things that can maybe help this transition be a little easier, okay? Number 1, sail the oceans of the uncharted. The first step is to change your mindset about change itself. This is hard. Instead of seeing change as something to be feared, perhaps trying to view it as an opportunity for growth. Yes, it can be uncomfortable at first, but that's because you're stepping out of your comfort zone. And that's a good thing. Stepping outside of your comfort zone is how you grow and how you learn new things about yourself. But if our knee-jerk reaction is to resist change, we're not doing ourselves any favors. Change is a necessary part of growth, and without growth, we'd all be stuck in the same place year after year. And I don't know, who wants that? I mean, just think about how boring life would be if nothing ever changed. Of course, it can be scary to venture into the unknown, but that's what makes change necessary. It's an opportunity to learn and grow and to discover. There's an old adage, an old saying, a ship is always safe at the shore. And this comes to mind. But ships aren't built to stay on shore. That's called a house. Ships are meant to go out. Ships are meant to explore the world, to take risk, and to reap the rewards. It's the same with people. We're not meant to stay stagnant. We're not meant to stay in our comfort zones. We're meant to challenge ourselves, to grow, and to learn from our experiences. Life is all about growth, and that growth doesn't happen when we are standing still. It happens when we're pushing ourselves, taking risk, stepping outside our comfort zones. But when we embrace this change, these oceans, by slowly putting our feet in the water, these tiny baby steps one at a time, we're also wanting to set aside realistic ideas, realistic sights on where we're going. And so with that, I would suggest slow the roll. If the thought of change feels overwhelming, take a deep breath and relax. Remember to slow your roll. This doesn't need to be done all at once. Growth happens gradually, over time. Just like a ship sails the ocean one day at a time, growth happens one step at a time. And not to be too cliche, but it's true. Every journey starts with a single step. So take things one day or even an hour at a time. And when you get overwhelmed, focus on the present moment and don't worry about tomorrow and what it may bring. Where is your boat on the map of the ocean? Even close your eyes, visualize it. Think about where your boat is on this map of the ocean. You might not be where you want to be just yet, but you're making progress. You're in the water. You're away from shore. You've moved. And that's what matters. That's where you are. That's great. If you find yourself getting lost or ahead of yourself, take a deep breath. Remind yourself that everything is going to be okay and come back to this because it is. We have a tendency to worry about tomorrow without even getting through the moment that we're in. When the idea of change begins to overwhelm, tend to what's in front of you. Bring your attention to the present. Bring your attention to your boat and your part of the ocean. Some days you'll fight the currents. Some days you just let them carry you and you just float around out of curiosity. But no matter the waves of life, you're going to get there. You will. And if I could suggest one more thing, it would be this. Create a buddy system. I know it sounds silly, but create a support system. Change is tough, even when it's positive, and that's why it's important to have a strong support system in place. We all have our support systems, the people that we rely on to get us through tough times. And for some of us, it's our friends and family. And while they're always there for us, no doubt, sometimes we need someone who maybe hasn't heard our story before. Someone impartial who can help us see things maybe in a different perspective. who can perhaps direct you or even speak to you the way that a close friend or family member couldn't or wouldn't even imagine. And that's where a counselor or a therapist comes in. They can help us navigate the waters of life, and they can help us identify the patterns that are no longer serving us, that are no longer guiding us to healthier parts of the ocean, calmer waters. They can help us prepare for the next seasons, whatever they may hold. Creating a support system by reaching out to a counselor or a therapist could be the best decision you ever make, and maybe not even dealing with change, but just processing the steps involved, bouncing ideas, getting unbiased feedback, and then having their help and charting your course with these ideas. But in all of this, be patient with yourself. Give yourself some grace. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither are we. Change is a process, not an event. I'm going to say that again. Change is a process, not an event. Too often we expect changes that we want to see in our lives to happen immediately. We expect that as soon as we decide to change our diets or start working out or quit smoking or to start someplace new, that the change will happen immediately and we'll magically become the person we want to be overnight. But that's not how life works. Change is a process, not an event. It takes time, effort, and commitment to see lasting results. It's normal to feel scared or unsure when you're making a big change in your life. That doesn't mean you should give up or go back to the shore. Just because something is hard doesn't mean it's not worth doing. After all, the most rewarding things in life are often the ones that require the most effort. Navigate the change and see it as an opportunity for growth. Maybe it's scary at first. Trust me, you can handle it. Just because every season has its ups and downs doesn't mean you should stay in your comfort zone. There will be good days. There will be bad days. But this is just one chapter in your life story. Regardless of where you are, there are many more seasons to come. So make the most of this and learn from it. Close your eyes, see your ship in the ocean as it inches closer and closer to a new shore, to new territory. Growth happens in seasons. Life happens in seasons. We are always moving from one season to the next, whether we realize it or not. So embrace each season. Embrace each stage of life. Embrace yourself. Because if you do, I promise you will be just fine. To find more episodes of Calm It Down, hear the musical playlist from today's episode, or simply wanting to know where to send chocolate chip cookies, visit calmitdownpodcast.com. You're not alone. You are not alone. This podcast was written and produced by yours truly, Chad Lawson, composer, pianist, and nationally recognized Sweet Tooth. And now something my attorney wants me to say. The views, expressions, and techniques in this episode are of my personal opinion and is not intended to, nor should they serve as a substitute for medical advice or diagnosis rendered to you by your individual doctor or other healthcare provider. Only a licensed physician should evaluate your situation, provide a diagnosis, or render other medical advice to you, and you should only act upon the advice of such physician. Now, what I like to say. I am an extreme empath by nature, but my profession is that of a composer and pianist, not a licensed therapist or physician. I hear from thousands of listeners how my music has helped them through various stages of emotional needs, and I simply want to offer this and future podcasts in aiding those needs. To find a list of licensed professionals in your area, please visit calmitdownpodcast.com. And finally, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review. While it takes less than 60 seconds to do, its impact will last for years to come, as every little bit helps in growing the awareness and the importance of emotional health. I'm Chad Lawson, and until next time, be kind to your mind, and join me next week as we